We're alive. Ha 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 ha.
Our first show. Yes, we're alive.
Okay. So.
And welcome to the Magician's Table.
All right. Let's start. Say that again while I'm not talking here. Okay.
Welcome to the Magician's Table. Was that better?
I loved it.
We are the hostesses with the mostesses.
Here with our Lady Lumps to give you goosebumps.
It's just so much fun.
Okay,
well, before we get ahead of ourselves,
right?
We do need to do little introductions. So, Lady Amaran, who are you? What is your craft?
I, as you just said, am Lady Amaran, and I'm awesome. I'm like, I could just sum it up like that, really. No. So I am a crystal energy practitioner, jewelry designer, and soul coach with my business Nature's Lore, and just general all around, lover of the metaphysical and all things weird and creepy and crazy and supernatural. So
an all-around badass bitch, and I was like, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I could go with that. I like it. All right, Madame Desiree. How about you?
I'm Nicole Desiree. I am a divination and healing professional, and I teach some of that, although I haven't been teaching lately. But I love to teach people new things about how to read the signs that are in their everyday world and make practical use of the signs and information that's available. And I think that information is, or can be, part of a healing process. And that's the little bit of the long bit of what I do.
The short, sweet version. Yeah. We could spend the whole hour just on introductions, so.
We probably could, because like you and I really have, we've been on a long journey, and we both have many curious avenues that we tend to walk down. And I think that's what makes the magic of our relationship, is that we like to talk about those curios and quips that come into our paths, and that even though we're on different paths, we have a lot of similar things that we bring to the table, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, there's going to be more stories coming out as we do more of these.
Right.
So let's ask about the news, and if there's more introduction stuff that comes out later, we can unfold some of those things. But so since we last spoke, has anything, I don't know, just like scratched that curious itch for you?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind actually is I started watching this. I'm, as we were just talking about walkers and zombies and stuff. So I'm a huge Walking Dead fan. Like, just put that out there right now. And so anyway, there is a new, I think it's like a mini series that just started, about the history of horror, like in movies and TV specifically. Yeah, like super cool. Now I'm not typically like I like certain things, like I like the zombie things, I like the supernatural, like possession kind of movies and stuff like that, usually. But I'm not so much like the slasher, killer, kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like everybody has their favorite.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm totally clean, like if it's the psychological suspense thriller thing where there isn't any blood, guts, or demon possession or otherworldly things, and it's all happening in the mind, that for me is okay, and everything else is kind of like not okay. I'm a scaredy cat.
I love it. So anyway, it started several weeks ago, and we've just been recording because it comes on at like midnight. So we've been recording it, and we sat and caught up with the previous episodes yesterday, and it was just so cool. So the first episode was on the whole zombie thing.
Which is like world.
Right, it really is, and it was really cool to see like where it all started, and there's so much that goes beyond just some mindless walking dead person and all that but so just I loved the show and how it went in, not just about the zombies and then into the slasher movies and stuff like that, but discussing the deeper aspects of it. And like for me, one of the things that I love so much about The Walking Dead, the show, is that it's not really a show about zombies, it's a show about the human condition. And for me, and I know both of us are very similar with this, we love psychology, we love trying to figure out why people do what they do, and the whole brain game. So it was a really cool show to watch, because it went into the basics of the different types of horror flicks and this and that, but it also went into that kind of deeper underlying stuff that was within those different categories. So that was just super cool for me. I was just eating that up yesterday.
Particularly with the zombies, when I went to a community college while I was going to university, because I just love learning so much. I took so many classes. I ended up taking a class on horror in order to try to get over my fear of watching horror movies.
Oh, no, see, that's practical. I love that.
I attack all of my fears. I'm like, I'm gonna go pick up a book and read about it. And so it definitely calls to mind, like what you're talking about here is like exactly a lot of art in general. It's like that's it. It's the expression or reflection of the human condition. And in my class, they broke down the zombie types and the psychological fears we're collectively facing through the zombie types of like, is it a fast zombie or is it a slow zombie? And this is the implications of the fast and slow zombies.
That's awesome. Yeah, this touched on that too, and it's so cool, and it's like, because everything can have meaning. Not everything is done with the purpose of giving it meaning, but everything can have meaning. And what I really like about stuff like this is that it typically is done for the purpose of having a specific meaning. And it's one of those mediums that, like, it's not done to just be like, in your face, here's a lesson, and everybody's like, all right, whatever. It's like, it's entertaining too. So it like will actually pull you in. And then you're also oftentimes just subliminally, getting that message, and which I think is really cool. Like, it was just really up my alley. And side note on that, so apparently, and now I am a absolute lover of The Silence of the Lambs. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Excellent movie. Loved it ever since I first watched it. I always thought it was a psychological thriller. Yeah. Apparently, it's categorized as a slasher. So who knows? Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that either. I always thought it was a psychological thriller too.
Yeah.
And
I put it more in the category of like a Criminal Minds type of thing than a slasher movie. But whatever. It's I guess that's technically a slasher movie, but I digress. So
now I'll have to like rewatch it with new eyes of actually paying attention to the horrific parts about it, rather than, it's hard not to, like, going on a tangent, it's like it's hard not to get sucked into the relationship between Jodie Foster's character and Anthony Hopkins' character, and how that, like, dance of the minds unfold, that it's really easy to forget about the actual horrific things in the movie. Because when I think about it, what comes to mind in that movie, I don't really think about, I guess, like, murder, death, whatever happens. I only think about their relationship of talking together, of talking through things, and what a uncertain, dicey, but weirdly sexy territory that is, which is interesting too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of horror, if you think about it, there's a lot of sex that comes out in horror movies, which maybe is also a reflection of the collective American subconscious, because we're collectively afraid of sex. I was having a conversation about vibrators at work today, because apparently we're selling vibrators at work, and I guess some woman walked in and was like, ah, ah, this is so immoral. And we're just like, excuse me? In what way? Like, how is this exactly a bad thing? Are you upset? Like, what is wrong here? And I don't know, like, it's a store intended to promote wellness and well-being and healthy activities, and I don't know, I didn't find it I don't know, to everybody their own thing, but there's definitely fear surrounding.
Oh yeah, it's like it's one extreme or the other. It's like, yeah, you've got the, forgive me, the prudes, or like the far other spectrum, the like way, make it too loose, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like whenever you're at those edges of extremes, there's a lot that gets missed. It's like, walk the middle road. That's all you need. That middle path, and then I don't know. Then it
Well,
maybe be boring, but okay. So,
okay,
was
so
there
yes.
anything else in your week that lit your fire?
Yeah, that's really probably about it. It's really, the what jumped out at me so far this week is the just, that really just, got my brain running,
The
and
season,
thinking about all that.
yeah, very timely.
Right? Yeah, like
What a great way
totally.
to celebrate October. Well, I had a, like, on the opposite side of entertainment, because I've been really short on time. I've been binge listening to a lot of podcasts, because it's something that I can do while I'm doing other things. So when I walk the dog, I listen to a podcast. When I do my chores, I listen to a podcast. When I'm driving to work, I listen to a podcast. And the one that I listened to last night was really inspiring, and totally the opposite of what we've been talking about. The podcast I was listening to is called The Corner Office. And the corner office is the reference to the office that the CEO gets in a business, because the corner office is always the biggest office, or the corner space is always the biggest space. And the if anybody listens to NPR, it's the host of Marketplace. So he has these really short one-on-one interviews with people who are leaders in their industry or leaders of their field. And when the thing first started, it was really normal type stuff. So he interviewed the CEO of the Marriott, or the CEO of United Airlines, and stuff where when you think of corporate America, you think of stuff like that. Or like he interviewed Warren Buffett. Well, last night The interview was really intriguing because it wasn't a CEO, and there were metaphysical elements that were brought up, and it was short and it was sweet. It was about the Queen of Queens, RuPaul. So he
Wow.
sat down at a coffee shop with RuPaul and just asked, like, how did you become an internationally renowned icon of drag? Like, how did you do this? And what I really loved about his story that he shared was how, like, really down to earth he was about it, and also how metaphysical he was about it. And it just really showed me all the things that we tend to talk about in, like, the spiritual metaphysical community of, like, aligning to your energy and listening to the call, and what happens when you take really ridiculous big chances, which obviously he had taken, because in our world, and particularly when he was doing this, because he first got famous like a little over 30 years ago, when the landscape was not as friendly, right, to
Right.
homosexuals in America. He's a black gay man that dresses up as women. That's usually a cocktail for, like, murder, suicide. And he rose above that because when his mother was pregnant with him, she went to I don't remember if it was an astrologer or a psychic, but somebody who does readings, and she said, I don't know how, but your son is going to be famous someday. And most people would take that like, this is whatever. And I know, like, and we'll get into it later, of like, I know, like, we don't do predictive style readings, and it's probably a total fluke that like this woman told this, because what mother doesn't want to hear, like, oh, your child is going to be a grand success and rich and famous, and like all these things. But it is really interesting that that seed was planted in his mother's mind, and so she just always, I guess, believed in him and the risks that he wanted to take and that he needed to take in order to find the catapult to fame and success. And so he grew up always believing in himself. But more than that too, he listened to his heart space, and he felt a calling, and he knew that, as ridiculous as it seemed, decades ago, to be able to make I mean, it would have sounded ridiculous decades ago. Now it's
Right.
like, well, of course there's, drag kings and queens that do that as a living full time. But decades ago, such a thing would have been preposterous. And so he carved out an industry. He's an example of somebody that was the first of something, and that had all to do with him just believing in himself, going to that calling, listening to his body and being like, this is something that I do well. Maybe I need to do more of this, even though it's hard, it's dangerous, it's expensive. Like, he made a lot of investments. He spent a lot of money in order to become the perfected version of what he needed. And I think that was really inspiring and interesting to hear that perspective, that someone from the corporate landscape reached across to somebody who's on the outer edges to ask, like, success comes in all different types of forms and sizes, and that it's, you don't have to be the head of a corporation in order to, like, own your life, own your projects, own your path. And that was like the most exciting thing, I guess, that I encountered in the past week. It was really encouraging to me. It's like, yes, this is the message, right? Like, believe in yourself and be fabulous. Like,
Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think that's also an interesting, you know, example of possibly, the self-fulfilling prophecy, because when you're saying, okay, oh, your son could be famous, and all this, and it's like, Okay. There's several ways you could take that though.
Right.
Like, you could think, oh, they're gonna be a movie star, yay, or like, yeah, something, some great TV star or something like that. You could also go down the road of, oh yeah, they're gonna be murdered in like the most horrendous way, and everybody's always going to remember, like, so famous. So, but I think that that's interesting that you take that generalization, general statement basically of, oh, he'll be famous, and take that and make it what you want it to be, which is, again, why we don't do any kind of predicting or anything like that, because it goes into that whole aspect of creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, is because then whatever you think of it, that's what you're going to create. So, for him, thankfully, he made it a positive,
Right.
and a positive catalyst for actions, as opposed to wallowing in, something like, oh, I'll probably, yeah, be like whatever, and I'm gonna, end up being some psychotic murderer, and I'll be famous, like fucking Bundy and shit, and like, and I think that's also a very interesting aspect. That's what popped into my mind as you were saying that
Yeah.
you
No.
know,
Just yeah. There's definitely the positives and negatives of how to take that and the self fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, that's something that we should probably talk about another time. Self fulfilling
yeah,
prophecy.
for
And
sure.
I mean, it's a very powerful kind of thing. But yeah, yeah, that's. I guess too is just I just loved how raw and honest the interview was. So
Yeah, that's really cool, and that's cool to have that kind of crossover, because that's pretty rare. Um, to have, yeah, more corporate to go to the metaphysics, or vice versa, or any kind of, you know, fringe
and
kind of thing.
and I feel like we need more conversations like that, which is why we're here, because we've had
Exactly.
really fun, positive conversations. But I love that of people from completely different backgrounds, just like reaching out, saying hey, finding some similarities, having a good conversation. Whether you believe what the person's saying or not, or holding the same value of whatever. And it just made me feel like I'm on the right path today. Like, which is funny because then I ended up getting lost on the walk. So that happened. But I made it back home safely eventually.
And that's good. I'm glad.
All right. So, do we want to talk about what you need to do when a demon's in your house?
Oh no. I'm my vote. I mean, we can just cut to the chase right here. Is head under the pillow. That's just,
I see that a lot in like cartoons. So it must be effective.
right. Like, cartoons don't lie. Like, for shit. Like, if you see it in the cartoon.
Yeah, no, I mean when I need to study the law of gravity, I always reach for a road runner Bugs Bunny.
The classics. I mean, that taught generations about science and physics and just, general everything, life. I mean.
I avoid bananas that are on the ground, banana peels on the ground like the plague, because I know if I step on one, I will injure myself. Like
And see, I learned that I would have to have tough feet to be able to drive a car.
So are demons. So we wanted to talk about what you do when a demon is in your house. And what made me think of this is not only my own personal experiences that have happened in recent memory, but just when hanging out in the metaphysical community or the spiritual community online, from time to time, there will be questions where people seem afraid of an entity that is in their house, an entity that could potentially be in their house, like a spiritual, malefic, dark agent that makes someone feel uncomfortable. And I know that the topic has been addressed all over the web, and there's all different kinds of rituals and protection spells and a whole bunch of things that you could do. But I thought it would be really great for us to just explain things that have happened in our lives, like real world experiences we've had, what we did about it, and how others can feel less overwhelmed, not alone, and more in control of the situation should it occur for them. So that, I think, the tone feels so serious all of a sudden.
I'm terrified. I'm quaking in my shoes right now.
We're doing our we are teaching people professional ghost busting.
Right? No, but that gets into a whole other thing. Like, you know, the difference between a demon and a ghost. I mean, that's
the different, yeah, and that I feel like will naturally bleed into maybe episode 2 or subsequent episode, because I personally have had separate types of experiences encountering the unknown, in that some experiences have been overwhelmingly negative, and some experiences have been neutral, and some experiences have been positive. And oh, I forgot like the important part of the introduction. I knew we were going to swing back around. The whole reason really why we're here, other than we're so awesome and beautiful and people need to look at us and worship our beauty.
She said it. I didn't.
It's that I see us as coming to the table, and that we are on opposite sides of the table. And that's what makes our conversation a little bit magical. In my opinion, we have a magical conversation because you have very different beliefs than I do. So we're viewing the spiritual and metaphysical world from different perspectives. And I think that by sharing those perspectives, we both end up learning more about the spiritual world, the metaphysical world, and about ourselves. And I think that's really fun and great. Like, that's what we're doing. So,
and I think it's really important, especially in this day and age, in this climate, to bring to the table the different perspectives and discuss, and to discuss and not to fight, not to just argue and bash and, you know, be all nasty.
I'm going to yell my opinion at you and cram it down your throat.
Oh yeah, sure, I'll accept it then. Why wouldn't I? But that's the thing. It's like, you know, I can respect your opinions, and we don't have to fight over it. And I know you respect mine. You know, my beliefs, and you know, it's okay. You don't have to get nasty, people.
Just a couple of kooks sharing stories, and it doesn't have to be anything more than that. And so that then does, you know, in talking about these like different spiritual entities, it's like then we have to talk about, well, it's like, okay, so what is a demon? Like, what is a demon? And we won't jump into the differentiations of, I guess, spiritual energies or whatever, because for me, I come from a side of skeptical view. Is this even really happening? And okay, I guess it's happening and I can't ignore it. What's actually going on here? So I have this like unknown stance of, I don't know exactly yet where I fall in alignment with things. So I'm open and I'm curious as to like, okay, what's potentially going on here? So for me, a demon is, I want to say, inherently malefic. And by malefic, I guess that's the fancy, nice way of saying evil. To me, a demon is an evil spirit, has a negative energy, is bad, essentially. A bad spirit being something I can't see with my human eyes, and doesn't have, for me, mostly physicality Although I guess some people do see them with their eyes, and just my experience has been like encountering the invisible, but I do know that they're bad. That's like all I know definitely about it.
All right. Well, I mean, I'll agree with that. That's for sure. For me, it's how to say it, like it goes to a biblical, spiritual place
Go
of,
there, go there. That's why we're here.
Well, no, I'm just like, I'm trying to think of the right, words, of course, but it, for me, you've got the basically angels and demons, and demons are fallen angels, and they, to not get into a whole other zone, here they're here with Satan, and they're evil spirits basically. They have powers, if you will, like angels. They're not human. They're not, they weren't at one point, people that died and, oh, you become an angel, or oh, you become a demon, or that's no. So for me, I believe that they are evil spirits, so to speak, fallen angels that are here essentially to wreak havoc, and manipulate and scare and try and drag people away from truth, bottom line.
Like an energetic concentration of chaos.
I could, yeah, that's a cool way to put it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so we're both agreeing on this baseline that like a demon is a spirit that, or a non-human that is evil. Like it's an evil presence.
Right.
It's something that you just like kind of taking note of. So we both have had experience encountering these evil spirits. You want to start?
Oh, sorry. Sure.
You said that your encounter was during your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
how old were you? Set up the background.
So I don't remember exactly how old I was. I'm gonna say, probably between 8 and 10. So trying to think of where we were and everything. So yeah, I was fairly young, and of course I was, go ahead and put it out there, I was one of those kids that when I got scared at night, I ran to mom and dad's bed, and I totally did that. Yeah, funny side note, when Jurassic Park came out, went to go see that at the theater. Yeah, mom got really tired of how long I slept in bed after that. Anyway, okay. Back on point.
We could like insert the clip of Jeff Goldblum laughing.
Oh yeah, totally. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I mean that's pretty much backstory that's needed for that. I grew up in the South, Bible Belt, so I've been a Christian my whole life and everything. So I've always had that spiritual base as well. So what happened was, it was night, it was the classic, it was dark and rainy, It's like, yeah. And Again, I was, one of those kids. I would wake up in the middle of the night and get scared, and all this, and various reasons and whatnot. And our dog would often sleep at the foot of my bed as well. And it was a night that she was, yeah, yeah, it was a night that she was asleep. Oh, because she didn't like the storms either. So, yeah.
You could protect each other.
Exactly. So, yeah, so she was, I remember, waking up, and she was at the foot of my bed, and it was just like super dark. And to try and explain the setup of our rooms at the time, so I had we had the hall, and then at the end of the hall was my parents' bedroom, and then mine was basically next to theirs. So our doors were basically like on corner, of each other.
My childhood home had a setup really similarly.
Yeah. So down the hall was my brother and sister in the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so there was basically a corner in between my door to my room and my parents' door. So I woke up and just had this, bad, of course it was, dark, and I was, a little scared anyway, but nothing terrible. But yeah, I look out my door, and my bed was on the same wall as the door, so I'm looking out and can't really like see out, but the door was open, and I just noticed like the hallway seemed really dark, but then there was this essentially like a shadow, humanoid, figure shadow, but the body was just pitch black. Just like there was nothing there, but it was darker than the dark in the hall. And there wasn't any light in the hall. It was just whatever light was coming from the windows, the moon outside.
Really tall?
I'm not sure. It was when I saw it, it was like it was in the corner outside the door and leaning in. So I don't know. I mean, it was adult size to me, but it was leaning.
You're a kid. You expect people older than you to just be like a giant.
Right. Right. And it was, it was leaning around the corner. So its head was poking into my room essentially. So I don't know specific size, but I remember it had red eyes, and the rest of it was just pitch black. And it was one of those things where, and I think it's so interesting because, of course, when I tell this story, most people go, well, yeah, whatever, is your imagination, or how do you know it was a demon? How do you know like a ghost, or, whatever. And I'm like, I go back to, if you look at stories in the Bible about anybody that's met an angel, there was no question what it was.
Yeah.
Like nobody ever questioned, oh, you're an angel? Like really? Oh, surprise. I'm like, no, they just knew.
That's so funny that you say that, because I have a separate encounter with an angel, and it seemed to me that like no matter where I was in my faith, like I was raised in a Christian household, and then I broke away from the church. But even when I broke away from the church, there was just no doubt in my mind that this figure, this person that I met, was an angel. And it's like I feel crazy even saying it, but it's like you just know when you meet. And so for you to see something that is darker than the dark, what else is it supposed to be? Like,
right. And it just that, I had that sense of just utter horror, and not the kids scared at, you know, the dinosaurs and you know, on the TV, you know, kind of, or the, like, I literally, like, I of course I wanted to run to my parents' room, but that wasn't going to happen because I wasn't going to run, you know, past the demon to get to my parents' room. And I wanted to call out, you know, for my parents because I was so scared. I couldn't talk. I couldn't make any sound whatsoever. I curled up in the corner of my bed, and wanted to scream so bad, and nothing would come out. And yeah, I just remember the sense that I had, you know, in that moment of, yeah, that presence, that, you know, bad, you know, bad juju, if you will, you know, and yeah, it was just unbelievable, you know, etched into my memory, you know, and it, of course, I was young at the time, and I didn't really know much about anything, you know. I take that back. I was always brilliant, but as far as stuff like angels and demons and whatnot, that went to a whole different place. But I always believed that, you know, that was a thing, that there were angels, there were demons, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just remember as time went on, and I learned more about that whole thing. It really made sense, and how, yeah, they can kind of come in and basically, you know, try and disrupt or, you know, cause issues and whatnot, personally or within family and whatnot. And it made sense. But a really interesting thing, and this goes to kind of the opposite side. So that was basically the extent of that. Eventually, I fell back to sleep, and, you know, woke up the next morning and everything was normal, you know. But of course, I remembered it, and you know, told. Well, no, I don't think I actually told anyone immediately, because I figured that, you know, everybody, oh, you know, whatever, you know, you're dreaming. But that next day, I was, I don't know, cleaning my room or something. I think I was vacuuming. And I remember just an overwhelming sense of peace and protection, basically. Like, just this overwhelming sense of, like, everything's gonna be all right, you know? And it was one of those things, like, I didn't see anything, I didn't, like, hear it, you know, nothing. It was just a feeling. But I just knew that it was like, you know, angel, you know, kind of coming down saying, you know, I'm here too. You know, it's not, you know, just not just the bad guy, you know. So I think that's when I told my mom what had happened that night, and then about the good feeling, you know. So happy about the good feeling. And she, you know, she kind of blew it off, but she kind of was like, you know, well, you know, she believes in angels and demons too, you know, so it's not going to say that no, you know, but for the most part, she blew it off. But yeah, I thought that was just so weird, and like, why did I see it? Like, what? Like, it was to me, it felt very intentional. That you know, it wanted that, you know, for
Yes.
me to see, you know, and all that. So yeah, it was just, you know, creepy as hell. I mean, even now, just, you know, thinking of it and seeing it in my head again, like, you know, creepy as hell. Um, but yeah, the feeling was just unbelievable. Like,
And
uh,
have you had any I mean, you haven't had any similar experiences since then.
no, mm-mm, no, nothing. Um, yeah, nothing that would even come anywhere close to an experience like that for sure. You know, um, yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know exactly what was going on and all that, but yeah, that's the only time it's ever happened. Um,
They were giving you a good story to tell for the purpose of the episode of this very important show.
right, like, you know, 25, 30 years later, you know, you're gonna love telling the story. You know, yeah, no. Still, I mean, it's one of those things where it goes to, you know, all right, it definitely, you know, gave me a story to tell, but it's like, you know, that still creeps the hell out of me, you
Right, right.
know.
You're not alone. I mean, obviously, I'm here, not alone. But no, there actually is a much larger narrative about the experience that you had, and this is where my shameless plug for my friends at the Believe Whole podcast come in. For so my friends Chris, Jeremy, and their brother John have this podcast. I think they release an episode maybe like once a month or something like that, and it's about paranormal, supernatural experiences and conspiracy theories, and this would fall under the realm of the paranormal experiences. And what has struck me about your story is that you can hear almost word for word your story in a very specific episode of their podcast called Shadow People, Real Ghost Stories. In that episode, they interview a gentleman who does paranormal investigation, but he does something beyond that. It's more than just investigation. It's more like he can sense those types of energies, and he tries to help people rid their homes. And this guy, his name's John, and he's from the Phantom Faction. Phantom Faction is like he has his own podcast. I haven't heard it yet because I think it is going to be too scary for me. He pretty much collects stories of encounters that people have like this, and I guess one of his personal missions is that a lot of us have those types of experiences, and just like you hesitated before telling anyone that it happened because you intuitively, instinctively knew that if you told your story, it was going to be dismissed, most likely dismissed by
Right.
anybody who could bring you comfort potentially. And a lot of people have those experiences meeting the shadow people, and it's exactly like you said, darker than dark, the red eyes, just like the silhouette of a figure that's just like standing somewhere, and that feeling of horror, that feeling of dread. And when you have that feeling of horror and dread, you kind of become paralyzed. And then also, too, losing your voice, of not being able to ask for help. Um, that story is one that many people experience, and I think that for many people to experience that, it validates that like those things exist, like
Oh
they
yeah.
are out there, and you don't have to be alone, and you don't have to keep it to yourself, and that there are people who are going to help support you. I mean, hopefully most people are as lucky as you were that then a benevolent spirit will come to just chime in and say, like, it's not all bad. But some people really are haunted to death by the fear that these evil spirits kind of invoke and probably feed off of. They don't, I feel like they don't scare us just for fun. I feel like there's something that they're taking away from us when these things happen. So John from Phantom Faction takes all types of inquiries. He reads emails, and he goes to houses and does house clearings for free. So he does this as like a gift to people.
Wow.
Feel like people should be suffering in their own homes like that. And so I guess that then should lead into my story. My story's different than yours, or my experience was really, really different. This just happened. This just happened a month ago. Like, this happened. So this is October. Happy Halloween. This happened last month, and I was sleeping here. I'm in bed. You guys can't see, but I'm in bed. I kind of like woke up from a sleep, and I felt like something was sitting on my chest, and I just had the feeling of being weighed down in a particular place. And it happened so fast. But the moment that I was conscious, I felt the weight, and then I felt the weight lift, and I felt something fly away. And the feeling was so distinct. I know that it wasn't a dream. I know that it wasn't a nightmare, that this was something I was perceiving consciously, that there was something in the room that was feeding something off of me or doing something to me, and then it just left. But the feeling that I had was one of that, like, terror. There's a kind of darkness, a dark feeling. And it's really hard, I think, to describe terror as being anything other than it is. Like, how exactly do you describe being happy? Like, it feels light and joyful. Well, terror feels dark and heavy and
Right.
paralyzing, and there's no screaming. I remember I was trying to scream for help. I was trying to just move, to make my mouth move. And I am somebody who has suffered from sleep paralysis and night terrors. Like, I have nightmares and I have night terrors and I have sleep paralysis, and those are all separate things. And this thing that I experienced was completely different. And that in that particular moment, I was like really conscious of that it was there, that it was happening. But then I started noticing a pattern that it was like every other day or every 3 days, I would wake up in the middle of my sleep with this feeling of terror and dread, and just feeling like something was inside the room. And I wasn't really sure what to do about it. I'm like, this is just making me feel like I'm crazy. Like, and maybe that's part of it. Like, maybe that's part of the process, because if you feel like it's all in your head and that you're just being crazy, which a lot of us, like, let's be real, for most of us, that's exactly how we're going to take it. Of like,
Right.
like Scrooge, like Ebenezer Scrooge, just like, I ate a piece of meat, it must be indigestion causing these nightmares. Like,
Right.
before I went to bed that's making this hell descend upon me in the middle of the night. But then I decided to get curious and reach out to people of, like, have you had this experience? What do you recommend that I do? How do I get it to stop? I guess that's the big thing, is like, I don't want this disturbing my sleep anymore. How do I get this to stop? Because I don't want to feel afraid to go to bed. And I think a lot of people who have repeat visitors or ongoing residents in their house of malefic intentions just want the chaos to stop. So in your case, it's like the thing left and it didn't come back.
Well, what I believe, and I'm not saying that I know this for a fact, but this is what I believe based on, what I know biblically and spiritually and then just general deduction, um, is that there's constant spiritual warfare in the dimension that we can't see. So it's not one of those like, oh, it's up there. Like, no, it's here happening all around us. We just don't perceive it.
There's
And
a great point. It's a great point.
right. And
I think it's like a way I can't touch it. When,
right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and I guess we should both say right now that both of us, when we get curious, we follow that rabbit down the hole until we grab a hold of the tail. Like we have questions, don't let it up. And
right.
And I feel when people have that misconception of heaven or the spirit world at large being up and out, it's a mistranslation of heaven or the spirit world, and everybody thinks it's up when really it's something across, and it's more like a state of consciousness or reality, or however you want to frame it. And I think that when we get everybody on the same page of like, this is what we're talking about, the spirit world is here with us, it's not a separation, there isn't like a membrane and we're waiting to break out of the egg of our reality, at least not in that like up and out kind of way.
Right. Yeah, not like we're living on the first floor and they're on the 20th, having their, shit up there, yeah. So for me,
so it's happening here.
Understanding that, aspect, and that there is this constant battle going on, that's what I believe it was. I believe that essentially, for whatever reason, I was able to glimpse for a second to that dimension and see it, and it, basically see some of the players on the battlefield, if you will.
A child enabled you more to see it physically with your eyes?
Yeah. I think it's, I don't think either of us would dispute that that's, really is the thing. Children are less tainted with opinions and whatnot. They are more able to open their mind in a sense, and be able to perceive in various forms things that
no notion of what reality is, so they
right.
accept.
Right, exactly. So yeah, so that to me, so I don't think it left, per se. I think that there was, and I don't know if it was like a battle specifically for my family, for the house, for the, whatever. But for whatever reason, there was stuff going on in the spiritual world there, and I caught it, for a second. So that, yeah, to me, that is what it was. So I don't, whatever the details are, of course, I can't say, but that's what I feel like was happening. So
I feel that echoes a lot of information that I have encountered in the metaphysical community, whether those people having that conversation were Christians or not. That there is at the very least a parallel recognition of there is something going on between good or positive energies or angels and bad and negative energies or demons, and that there is a tension there
Right.
that sometimes we journey through the crossfire of.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're looking at it like that and you are experiencing these things, like you had a very concrete example. You saw the figure, you experienced the terror. But I think there is room for us to not be as conscious of what's going on,
Oh yeah.
but have the crossfire manifest within us as mood swings or physical ailments, or shifts in perceptions of things that create mental, physical, emotional, spiritual unrest, unwellness.
Well, and even on that note, I mean, that could take us down a whole nother side hole on this topic of possession. And, you know, I believe that a lot of illnesses are a symptom of possession. I think that and there's reasons why I think that I won't get into details, but just overall, you know, essentially, I think there's more demons and demon possession than actual illness out there. So I think a lot of what's happening is symptom of, you know, the demons, the, you know, the evil spirits, and yeah, I think it's a lot bigger than maybe even the typical, you know, believer, if you will, would think. But yeah, it's and I love, you know, how you were talking about that. You know, one of my favorite movies, and I don't, on a biblical level, I don't agree with this movie like hardly at all. On an entertaining level and on a good versus evil in the spiritual world level, the movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves is like one of my fucking favorite, because I absolutely love it, because it goes, and one of my favorite things about it is when he's talking with the you know, because he plays the John Constantine, and Rachel Weisz, who plays the female lead, like Catholic, and you know, I guess they don't believe in the devil and Satan and all that kind of stuff, you know, and you know, so they're towards the beginning of the movie, and they're talking, and she's basically being hunted by demons, and you know, Satan's wanting her, you know, for various reasons, whatnot. And John, who fights, you know, the demons and all this kind of stuff, you know, and he's trying to help her, and all of a sudden, you know, he's talking to her, and it's like, you know, do you believe in the devil? And you know, she's like, no, I think that people are inherently evil. I don't believe in the devil, and you know, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, well, you should, because the devil believes in you. And I was, yes, you know. But anyway, so overall, though, I loved it because it really gave that the way that it was done really showed the dimensions, basically. It's like, you know, oh, they're here, we just don't see them, you know, and all this is going on that we can't necessarily foresee, you know. So, but just because we don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there, it's not real, or, you know, whatever. So anyway, just talking about the subject, it was like that popped in my head. It's like, oh yeah, of course, like fucking, like Constantine, perfect, you know.
Sit back and get a little bit more cozy. Well, so I didn't want to just bring this stuff up for everybody to reflect upon the evil experiences they have had or are currently having.
Or something to look forward to happening.
There's a shadow man coming. Yeah,
I'm interested to hear what you maybe found or heard about, when in your after your experience. You said you were got into communities and were looking for answers.
I had some. So I had. That's a really good question. Like that's a really good segue, and it's partly what I was going to bring up of like, okay, so what do you do? And it's hard, I think, from your story, like you, and maybe it's because you had the extra protection of being a child, and children kind of have this natural innocence and protection over them, and you had like care and intentional protection of like your family, your parents and stuff. Um, but you didn't have to do anything extra to get it to go. It's like you stood witness. That was enough, and then the wave of comfort came. And for me, as an adult, I didn't see it, but I sensed it. I knew it was there, and it was really uncomfortable, and I didn't want it to keep happening. So yeah, I reached out to the community, and it's kind of been of like, okay, if you run into this, what should you do? And a few years back, and this is something that we might talk about at a future time, and it's okay if we don't because the situation was so traumatic for me. I don't like to tell the story more often than I need to, but I was in a situation where somebody was practicing black magic around me and trying to manipulate me. And during that instance, I also reached out to a community, to the online community, to ask for advice and ask for help. And I bring this up because when I went through that experience, I reached out to a Facebook group and I put my story in a post and asked for advice. Well, then I got like 50 different opinions
Right.
on how to proceed. So I've gotten a little bit smarter about asking for advice, and I've heard from other people that it can be a problem going to groups for advice because you're going to get a lot of people weighing in. Some people will know what they're talking about. Some people just want to feel like they're an expert and be heard, or whatever the case is.
Right.
So I would say step one, if you are encountering something unknown, and this goes for a lot of things, whatever you're trying to look up on the internet, you can be bombarded with information. Like that's the real challenge of our age, of like sorting through the bullshit to get to the actual kernel of truth.
Right.
Instead of going to the community at large, I reached out to a handful of people that I knew had experience clearing houses or clearing people. I reached out to people that I knew specifically worked with like malefic energies, trying to transmute them or build protection. And for me, I'm sorry, I get something poking my eye. It's like something doesn't want me to tell this story.
I was just gonna say.
Tell you what, like all of a sudden my technology is gonna fail too. That seems to be a big one that happens to me a lot when I get into the story. I just all of a sudden feel like I have something really tiny poking my eye over and over. Not trying to freak out, but and then it's also the season for me to have eye problems too because it's fall and I'm allergic to the trees, as pretty as they are. So I chose. I went to 3 separate people or groups, closed groups, to get information. And I didn't tell any of the other ones that I was talking to the other ones, and I wanted to see if there were parallels between what they were saying in order for me to get a founded conclusion. So I guess that's my first step of, be aware of what information you are getting by being savvy about your information. Don't open yourself up to everything. Like, really look at it. If you're reading an article, you don't have to take that as fact. Where is this person coming from? Do they have a lineage of family tradition? Did they, I don't know, study under somebody or whatever, and which is hard because working in this landscape, the direction isn't clear. it's not clear of who knows what, but you can kind of feel the intention. Is somebody trying to boost their SEO by writing this article or being an expert? Or are they legitimately trying to help people? And so I tried to go to people who are genuinely trying to help people, that have experience, that aren't afraid to look into it, that won't make me feel like I'm crazy, that will actually hear my story and ask me the right questions.
Right.
Because nobody's going to know everything. So I received the information from them, and that kind of helped me to make my own decision. So I didn't just like take everybody's thing as fact, and I didn't follow every little line item of advice. I sat within myself to see what feels right. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like the majority of the work, like the energy work or the spiritual work that we do, has less to do with um, taking very, very specific steps and more about this intention, like
Oh,
the
for
intent
sure.
of what you are doing.
Yeah.
So I listened, and I had two people tell me the exact same thing. So they kind of like psychically, remotely, intuitively accessed this area, or somehow came to this same conclusion. And all I told them was what I told you. I felt something sitting on my chest, and it felt like it flew away. And like, you know, the short end of the long end of it. And they both said, there is something in your neighborhood. And the reason why it's not coming to you every night is that it's not tied to the house. It's tied to the neighborhood. And it's like flying from house to house. And it tries to stir up nightmares because the negative energy that people give off, negative energy being fear, being that feeling of doom and dread and anger, like provoking fights, provoking fear, it feeds off of that energy. The darker becomes darker, and it sucks it all up. And I'm like, okay, what do I do about that? That sounds awful, you know?
Yeah. You're like, okay, that's great, but like, any helpful hints?
and and so there were what I thought were really sound pieces of advice, which is exactly why I went to people that I had learned to trust. And trust isn't something that you automatically give anybody, it's something that's earned. So these people have earned my trust. And I think that you'll appreciate the advice that they gave me. And, you know, feel free to chime in if you've experienced these kinds of things. The first thing that was suggested to me was like a protective shield, like us, you know, psychologically, I'm sitting with myself and just envisioning that I have something over my auric field, that if this malefic energy were to come back, it would bounce off of and not penetrate my personal energy. Of like
Yeah.
the intention to close myself up before I go to bed, and then
Right.
coming to me while I'm sleeping, because then my awareness is down, and that I naturally protect myself in my conscious state. And so
Right.
before I go to bed, if I'm energetically closing myself off, that's
Yeah. Because
one
see,
way.
for me as an empath, that's shielding, energetic shielding is a very big, basic aspect of life. So it totally makes sense to translate that further from, like, for me specifically using it for um, general day to day, like, this person's in a bad mood, I don't want to pick that up, kind of absorbing that, to take that into the bigger picture of, into the spirit realm, and so that makes sense. I agree.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's good to bring up, that especially for people who are really sensitive or empathic. And I used to do daily shielding, and then I kind of got distracted or dropped the habit of it. But when I was really in the thick of recovering from trauma, I did a lot of personal shielding in my waking day, so at the beginning of the day, to help me not feel so exposed to everybody's energies around me while I was so
Right.
again at night that did make sense. The other thing that came to me was like, oh well, why aren't you asking spirit? Like, why aren't you asking, like, and by spirit, that's like the over umbrella, big umbrella term for the benefic source of creation being that you would probably call God, that some people call other things.
Right.
Like, why am I not appealing to then the positive energy to come and light up my room? Like, be, push the negative energy out. And I was just like, oh, right. Like, all this stuff, people are saying these things, and I'm like, oh, right.
Like I should have thought of that.
Like, why am I not doing this? Why am I not solving my own problems?
And see, that one for me would be my response, to that, with the situation of a spiritual attack, a demon or something along that lines, I would say, well, yeah, pray. Like, if and I know, we obviously have different views on who and or what that is, but to for me it would be to pray to my God, to Yahovah, and address this issue, and um, that, there are again practical steps that you can take, like the shielding and stuff, but to me, the first and foremost, and my ultimate suggestion to anyone would be, pray, and seek help and protection from God, because it's a spiritual thing. You're like, dude, really? Like,
I'm trying to sleep down here. So for me, and in the community that I'm a part of, a lot of people, and you already know this, in the metaphysical or greater spiritual community, world religions, will reach out to specific spirits or entities. So the person who was advising me, they're just like, well, call in the specific angel that is the angel of protection to come and eradicate the negative energy from the neighborhood. Because isn't it irresponsible of me to only ask for my protection if I am aware that it is affecting my community? And if it's affecting my community, even if it's affecting me directly, it's still going to be a part of my life. Because if that person then is feeling zapped or whatever, and they're pissed off and they're angry because this thing is infecting them or making them ill, then who's to say they're not going to just, in a fit of road rage, accidentally hit my car or something like that? Like, there's ripple effects to negativity no matter where you are. And so I started thinking about this of like, okay, great, now I have to do something. Now I really have to do something about it. I have to be a good person.
Like, darn it, I have to help other people too. Oh, fine, I'll do it.
And so that's where it gets into a fuzzy area for me, because of not my beliefs, but my uncertain stance of believing, of like, it's not that I believe, it's not that I don't believe, it's that I haven't really found my way yet. And I'm like, I feel really silly trying to call upon an angel to eradicate a demon because it's terrorizing my neighborhood. It just feels like,
yeah, that's like when you think you start to hear the sirens from the loony bin bus, like, coming down your street, like, all right,
and
now
I try to step back to the, or were you going to talk about how you feel about angels?
Oh, I was just gonna put in that little tidbit since you brought up, calling on angels.
I think that's a good discussion for both of us to have, because I think we have, there's like this middle place, and then I think we have like way opposing views. Like you definitely have a religious viewpoint of what it means, and I take more of a like weirdly scientific approach to what I think it means. So
Right.
I want to, because I know that you brought up before how you don't make petitions to angels.
Right. And I know this is a topic that we could probably have a whole episode on, but
Another time.
for the quick version, obviously, like I've said earlier, that I believe in demons and angels. They're you know they're the same, but they're not. Demons, fallen angels, um, and you know countless angels. I mean, I do believe that there are a shit ton of them. There are only, I forget, it's like two or three that are actually named in the Bible. And but there are tons. We do have guardian angels. I do believe that. However, my spiritual belief is that it is wrong to call on, invoke, petition, pray to, however you want to state it, angels. Um, for me, that's putting them in place of God. So not that they aren't there, but for me, the whole, oh, this angel, blah blah blah, this angel is for that. This angel, his name, whatever, is, you call on him for that and all that, so that very much goes against my personal spiritual belief.
It's a very Catholic thing, isn't it? Actually,
Say again?
it's a very Catholic thing, isn't it?
I would not be surprised. I'm not super familiar with Catholicism.
Catholicism is like way into the saints. Like
right, they have all the saints, and I know that they have several angels. I don't know like if they go into like a whole lot of them. I don't know exactly where people have gotten all these angels from because they're not in the Bible.
yeah,
So
some people are just like, you need to be calling on like Archangel Ariel to help you manifest this and that. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, okay, I was raised Christian. I read the Bible. There are certain books that I had to memorize as a kid. And I'm thinking to myself, I do not remember a female angel, first of all, like a feminine.
Well, and let's just toss that out there. There aren't angels are male. There are no like male. They're male. But anyway, go ahead, continue.
Oh, yeah, this is like a whole other
right.
A whole lot of problems. Like, I don't remember there being a female angel. I don't remember that. Where are people getting this of who this angel is and what she's all about? And then
right, and the wings and the like all this. No, that's all like no.
Like, I don't know. There's just things that don't necessarily add up, but
right.
genderizing of angels too like doesn't add up to me either. Of like,
right.
They don't need to reproduce. Why do they have anything? Like, why does it have to be a map? Well, so there's that. That's
right. That could be a whole nother because biblically they can't. But anyway, yeah, that's a whole other like topic there.
For my own personal beliefs, when I think about angels, ascended masters, other gods and goddesses from other pantheons, like the whole gamut of all of these multitudes of spiritual beings that have, it seems like overnight, become weird celebrities.
Yeah, right.
I look at it like they they don't actually exist as humans because they don't have bodies, they don't possess these things that we have. Like, we have the stuff that we have because we're living in this reality, right? Like, I have to have the lungs to breathe and whatever, whatever. And we envision them as these people, but they aren't. So to me, I'm like, okay, I think that we're all interconnected, right? There isn't any real space dividing us, that there's even molecules in the air, and there's the spaces in between. See, this is, I'm telling you, it's like all this science stuff. There's the space, the inexplainable spaces in between all of the atoms and molecules that make us up. And I feel like there is a unifying, unidentified, energetic force that's pulling us all together, and that unifying force is like the God. Like, God is all around and within, and there's this big spiritual thing, and that when we're calling, or when I guess I should, when I'm calling upon an angel or ascended master, I'm calling upon that intention of energy. So, as an example, if I'm calling upon Kuan Yin, it's not because I'm petitioning a person or personified spirit. It's that I want to focus on the spectrum of energy that has the highest potency of compassion and healing, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
I mean, I understand your thought process on that. I personally totally don't agree with it, but I mean, I do agree with the energy principle. Everything is energy. I don't, I I believe that with the energy, energy comes and goes, and it can, it come, and that whole thing. But I do still believe that God is God. He's not just ethereal, everywhere kind of energy thing. I also, of course, again, whole nother topic, ascended masters and all that. That's, I don't believe in that. But yes, I definitely understand your thought process, and where you got to where you got, in a sense with that. But
It's like turning the dial on a radio to tune into the right channel of energy, of making things clear, of like not just
and see, I guess for me, and I get, I get that analogy and everything, and but to me, again, it would go to why, if you believe that there is one creator, one God, all powerful, all knowing, that whole thing, why call anybody else?
Why call it? Maybe
Right.
that's part of a maybe a black mentality or an esteem situation for me, because I'm like, well, why go to the boss when the supervisor is right? Like, I don't want to bother you. You're already.
Well, and that's
like, well, I'll go to the top and he'll dispatch the orders.
and I think I've actually heard that numerous times within the metaphysical community, specifically about calling to angels, and as opposed to God, because a lot of people that do that, believe in the basic, biblical God angel, whole system thing. But yeah, let's not bother the big guy. so let's just call on one of the supervisors, and instead. Um, and I, again, on a practical side, I understand that mentality. On a spiritual side, I go bullshit, because for me, that's not the instruction given in the Bible, and it actually goes against the instruction that we are given in the Bible. We're told specifically not to call on, invoke, pray to anyone, but God. And so I think, again, I can understand the thought process and the ideas behind that. It just isn't what I do, what I believe, but I think that's so interesting, because I've heard that several times, and I know, people are gonna look at me and go, you're like a certified angel card reader, and I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yeah, that must be difficult. Like, how do you reconcile?
Right. Well, but see, this is the thing for me, is that I like the cards because they're soft. They're encouraging. They're not. They're uplifting instead of neutral, if you will. But I don't do anything with this is, Angel Raphael, or whoever that, no. I just like the cards, basically. And but again, it's been a learning experience for me as well, because that's what I first got into when getting into cards, tarot or oracle or anything, and that started me down a whole another journey of learning about, what do I really believe? What does the Bible really, what, and all these things. So even with that, it was a whole nother step of learning experience, which I think is good. But also, for me, it was like, I know I have to know where I stand anyway, because like with our discussions, like, we have different views on a lot of things. Some things we definitely, pretty much totally agree on. But a lot of things we have different views on, and beliefs in, and all that. But for me, it's like, I don't feel threatened to talk and hear your opinion about it.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
Right. I still
conversation.
Right. I still believe what I believe. You believe what you believe. And, I don't think that information inherently is bad. I think when you go down that road with just open and just like, I'll take in whatever, that's when it really goes to shit. But
like, I'll take in nothing, or just this tiny piece.
Right, like, just give it all. I'll just absorb everything and accept everything, or even the opposite of, it's like, I'm not gonna like listen to anything.
There's a quip about that, of being so open and accepting of things, of not being discerning. And this might seem a little bit unrelated, but one of these like inspirational speakers that I follow, that kind of aligns me to this path, he wrote about why he doesn't believe it a good thing for anyone to get a tattoo. And to kind of set this up. He's I don't think he's Orthodox Jewish, but he is Jewish, and I know that part of that is like you're not supposed to make modifications to your body, or like that's where he's
Right. That's
religious belief side of it. But
yeah, that's religious Judaism. Yeah.
he went a step further with it, saying here's a reason why like a tattoo would be a bad thing. He knew somebody that got a tattoo of the like Live Strong logo when Lance
Armstrong thing, yeah.
For cancer, or against cancer, not for cancer, or against cancer. And he wrote this newsletter at the time when it came out that Lance Armstrong had been doping and that all of his Tour de France winnings had been like revoked. It was just this big scandal. And now it's like, well, now aren't you embarrassed because you had this thing permanently inked into your skin? And we all know that even if you try to have it removed, there's still going to be some like scarring and stuff there in the shape of
sure. You cover it up.
Totally covering it up and stuff. And that got me thinking too of at least for me, I'm like, I never really feel fully cemented in anything because you never know when more information is going to come in to totally turn your world upside down.
Right.
So you see people just thoughtlessly attached to certain spiritual leaders or spiritual ideas. I'm like, how do you know? Like, how do you know where this stuff is coming from? Some of the things of, I'm not going to give a good example right now, but of like rituals, like the Ho'oponopono. It's like, don't even get me started on the Ho'oponopono. Like, whoever told these people that it was a certain way are just totally wrong and pissing off a lot of Native Hawaiians. But yeah, now I'm straying a little bit far from.
No, but I think
house.
Right. But I think to bring us back, the praying, the shielding.
Yeah, that's where we align. I think that is interesting. We might execute those processes differently, but we immediately identify that it's like first mentally prepare and comfort yourself of protecting your own self-assurance of being safe, right? Like I can always assure myself that I'm safe. And to go back to the beginning of this with John in Phantom Fraction or Faction, that was one thing that he brought up as well. So I told you he does this like benevolent thing for free where he flies all over the world to clear people's houses. Mm-hmm. One of the first things that he tells them to do, that he instructs them, is like, tell the spirit to leave. They have no business being in your house. You should stand firm in your own safety. Like, you are okay. Tell it calmly to leave. Don't feed into your own fear. And a lot of shielding is that, of like slowing down that fearful energy that's like whirling inside of you, of just blocking that out. And then to pray, like to whether you are invoking a specific thing or praying to God. But I think the important thing in either case is that it feels right and truthful to you, and not a recipe that the outcome is going to be the exorcism of your house. Like, oh, I downloaded this thing. Like, I downloaded these steps from ReikiLife.com or something. Like, I'm sorry if that's a real website and
ton of bats full of, like, all right, now drink it and poop it out on the front porch and you're all good. Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, it's like you just go in a circle 3 times and spread salt around you, and then you're just like good to go. And it's like, well, that's not the point here. The point is that you are making a mindful intention to connect with spiritual, like a positive spiritual being that's higher than yourself to 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 help, to be honest that you are vulnerable and that you want a positive energy to be flowing through you. It's like a mindful intention, not like a set of dance moves that you have to go through.
Right.
But what else do we do? Do we do anything else to ward off malelific? You know, shoot out some holy water from a squirt gun.
I mean, yeah, there's, yeah, there's that whole side of the demon thing, the Catholicism and all that. But that, I mean, like I said, I don't specifically know, details about the Catholic lifestyle, but
not holy water, but I do think for myself as at the very least a psychological, or sometimes I feel like an energetic thing that I do to help with protection is burning candles or Palo Santo or something, I think, aromatic that shifts the mood, that helps me to transition out of fear, because the nose is one of the most powerful sensory perceptors in the human body.
Yeah. And that is a good point. It's like, it's not necessarily going to an energetic place. It can, I do think, the sage and oils and whatnot, also can go there. But yeah, even just going to essentially kind of a surface level of, getting your own mind settled, calm, it's like physically, literally calming yourself down, and yeah, that can be huge just in and of itself. And any type of negative situation,
you've worked with aromatherapy oils, right?
Say again?
You've worked with aromatherapy oils, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love me some of those, yeah.
Which ones would you recommend for the calming after the encounter?
I mean, that's something I haven't specifically looked at, but I know, and I think one thing to note about something like essential oils, like fragrance, is that on that surface level, different things work for different people. Because I know last time I was visiting my mom, she had gotten a new oil blend. It's supposed to be very bright and uplifting and, just bringing joy kind of thing. And I'm just over the moon for it. Like, it just is amazing for me. She doesn't really, it's not that she just doesn't like it, but it doesn't do that for her. And different people like different things, so also on that surface level, it's just smelling a certain thing. Like for me, I have my my triple moon oil perfume that, of course, I'm wearing today because it's full moon. But I love it. Like, I just wear it, and it doesn't matter what day it is, what's going on. I wear it, and I just like feel all warm and cozy, and just like I can just fall into it. It just makes me so happy. And but for you, it might not do the same. You might go, oh my God, that smells,
That actually did happen to me recently. I took home an aromatherapy that was called Sleep Remedy. It was supposed to calm and ease you into sleep, and the scent was so abrasive.
Right.
I was it made me angry. Actually, this is supposed to help me sleep, and it's
Right.
just keeping me awake, and it's awful.
And see, that's the thing. So like for me, like the first thing that comes to my mind for, you know, well, basically for anything, but for calming and stuff like that would be lavender. But if someone doesn't like lavender, then
the effect.
Right, on a deeper level, it can still have the needed effect, but on that surface level, it's like, man, you got to get over that smell if you don't like it, you know. So that's where like the essential oils go in like that weird zone of, you know, yeah, this would be perfect for it, but if you don't like the smell, you're not going to want to use it, and all you're going to be doing is thinking, oh my god, I hate the smell, you know. So it's like, yeah. But that's an interesting thought, though. I wonder. I'm sure that there are, you know, people that have done that research and go, oh yeah, you know, demon possession. Like this is the oil you want, you know. But
after my encounter, I did burn Palo Santo. There's something really comforting in it. Like Palo Santo to me has this like really warm. It's like a warm smell, whereas mint is like a really sharp smell to me that I don't really. But Palo Santo has this really warm, inviting, friendly kind of scent to it. So I wafted a little bit of that into the air, and then I decided to brush my teeth and go outside. So it's like I got fresh air and I brushed my teeth almost like I was starting bedtime over again. And then I went back to sleep and I fell asleep fine and I stayed asleep after that. And I thought that was important, that I gave myself that chance to hit the reset button instead of being too scared to go back to bed.
I think that you know, that kind of goes with like what we were saying with that, just that mental shift too of, you know, it doesn't have to be something metaphysical and all this kind of stuff. It can be something as basic and simple as get up, have a, you know, a cup of tea, you know, watch a few minutes of TV, you know, get your brain out of that zone.
It doesn't have to be a 45-minute incantation ritual.
Right. And, you know, yeah, from someone that spent a long time, yeah, with waking up scared, nightmares and all this kind of stuff, you know, but just that helps, you know, to get your mind off of it, and then you can go back to sleep. That doesn't necessarily help the overall problem of if there is something bigger going on, but you know, something, you know, you just need to get back to sleep right now and you'll deal with it later, some, you know, whatever, or just a bad dream or something, you know. It's, yeah, just take that little bit of simple, logical, basic steps, you know, and yeah, I like how you said it, kind of try and hit that reset button a little bit and like, all right, we're gonna start this over, go back to sleep now, you know. I like that.
All right, so I guess we should probably, because we've been on a while now.
Yeah, wrap it up here.
Wrap it up.
Climb back out of the rabbit hole for the time being.
Guess we gotta go back up to the real world. So, takeaways. What did you like about our conversation?
Well, I mean, you know, I personally love getting different perspectives on things, and you know, yeah, I think I'm right, but you know, it's like I still like.
You don't say, Leo.
I mean, you know, double Leo Aquarius rising. How could I possibly ever be wrong? I'm just gonna toss that out there. But yeah, I like the sharing of opinions, basically, and you know, I think I think it's interesting hearing about the podcast you were talking about and other people having the same exact thing. Now, I'll be interested to go and listen to that and see what they actually call it and everything. Because for me, it's not just some random entity. It's a demon. You got demons and angels and like ghosts and all that. That's like a whole other But anyway, so yeah, so I'll be interested to take a listen to that and see what they actually say about it.
That was really my takeaway, because I hadn't heard your story before today, and as you were describing it, I was just like, wow, that's exactly what they talk about in that podcast. And it really, to me, just highlights how universal strange experiences are, no matter what you believe.
Right.
And that when we have more open conversations like this, of not being afraid of each other's differences, of not being afraid to explore the strange and uncomfortable, we can make things a little less scary. We can make conversations a little bit more fun. And instead of creating divisions, we're creating friendships. And I think that's like the best part.
Right. And again, like I said earlier, it's like, creating that friendship with the similar experiences, or whatever. It doesn't have to be something that, oh, we agree on every aspect of life and philosophy and all this kind of stuff. Like, no, it's like we can still come together and find this kinship with having some similarities, but also differences, and I'll toss out there, you mentioned in passing you Christian upbringing, and then you came away from that, and my Christian upbringing, and I'll just toss out there that we both used the term Christian. We mean very different things.
Yes, we do, and maybe that's a topic for another time.
Right. Yeah, that would be a good topic for another time.
To share my story more, just because there's a lot of us like survivors of what I've been through, and like my generation and people who were involved with the specific sect of Christianity that I was indoctrinated in my childhood have really, really high suicide rates. And it doesn't have to be like that. And I think a lot of us don't talk about it because it's like humiliating and it's embarrassing. And a lot of us who had it or experienced it as kids don't have the social skills to talk about it. And so I know I need to talk about it at some point, which now, alluding to all of these things, make it like a provocative topic. So stay tuned, people.
Right. But yeah, so I think that's a very important point too, though, because you grew up way over here, in Christianity, and I grew up, Bible Belt, Southern Baptist.
But you didn't land in Bible Belt Southern Baptist for where you are.
Right. I have also
landed at different places than our upbringing.
Right.
So that is really important to take note of, I guess.
Exactly. And even though within that general phrasing of grow up Christian, we mean very different things. But yeah, even within that, we both landed in very different places, even though I still consider myself Christian, yeah, I'm not Southern Baptist, but yeah, I just that's an important point, I think, to toss out there as well, for viewers, that
curiously skeptic of
right
now, and I have like huge problems with authoritative figures, and that extends all the way to the top.
Right. And see, that for you, that comes from life experience. For me, I'm a fucking Aquarius rising. So like, I naturally have issues with authority. Oh, okay.
Well, we haven't decided our next topic, but I want to thank everybody already who stumbles across this video and makes it through to the end. Like, thank you for the journey. I will drop links and show notes to all of the references that we talked about during the video, and we will be doing this again in a month once we figure out what what topic we want to do.
Next topic.
Between cults and vibrators, it's got to be like there's
right.
Sex magic.
No, that's an interesting
There's
one.
something in between.
I mean, you work at a store that sells vibrators. I used to work at a store that sells vibrators. It's like there's some similarity there, and then you got the whole like, you know, man, we could get into some with, I mean, you know, the whole Thanksgiving coming up and all that. I mean, there's so many topics we could get into right now. It's like not even funny. So
like we could do an episode every day and not cover all the things we want to talk about.
We really could, which is how this started. In fact, you know, with our not daily, but you know, typically weekly conversations. And like, man, we should share some of this shit. This is good.
Archive it for ourselves. We're having a glass of wine and we miss each other.
That's right. Like, yeah, man, she's got to work today. All right, let me pull up an episode.
Audience of one. That's okay with me.
Well, the thing is, you know, it's here if anybody wants it. You know, take it for what you will. You know, enjoy. You know, essentially. So.
I think that's the best. Okay, guys. Well, you can catch me at valoria.com sometimes. I guess we should plug our stuff, right?
I love that.
Well, we're at magicianstable.com, so that's where the magic conversations, show notes, and the videos will be uploaded. Maybe sometime in the future we'll have a mailing list or something once we transition to the official website, which will happen before the end of November. So right now it's like valoria.wixsite.com/magician's table in this really awkward way.
We want you to work for it. You've got to really, really like it too.
You gotta earn this. Eventually it will be magicianstable.com, and that's where we will have clips, curios, blog posts, show notes, the show, and probably other surprises along the way. So
all sorts of
I'm bad at goodbyes. That's all I got. Should we just stick Happy Halloween.